Thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. My name is Chris Stevenson. Mike Kuzma is a famous name around Buffalo, but I don't know what to consider him. You know, he's a lawyer, activist, author. You know, what happened?
Well, let's say I ran for New York State Senate against Bill Stokowski and current Senator Tim Kennedy.
Okay.
I ran for Buffalo City Court in 2003, and I was a delegate for Dennis Kucinich when he ran for president a number of years ago.
And human rights activist.
And I represented Richard Kern, housing activist, social worker. I represented Dick Kern a number of years, who now lives and is quite happy in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yep, you're right. So this is a pretty famous name, a pretty busy individual. Matter of fact, I was with you. I remember I covered a protest with you guys.
Which one was this, at HUD?
No, UB, in front of former President Grainer's house.
Oh, is that with Roger Hicks and Jerry Moore?
Yep,
Jerry Moore,
yep.
Yes.
I remember that.
I remember that made the front page of the Challenger.
Yeah, it did. And it was a magazine in Rochester I submitted that to also. About Time magazine.
Yes.
Criterion, I think maybe with the Criterion also. I can't remember. But I remember that well. You know, and I would like to think that there are some good changes that came about as a result of that.
Yes.
Other than just Grainer retiring.
Yes.
You know.
Well, I'm happy to see him leave.
Yeah. You know, but I don't. I have to admit I haven't kept up with the black student body as far as if there was any increase at UB. I don't know if you have or anything.
Well, UB had a reputation of being a public interest law school over the years, and the law school just, traditionally was downtown, and that's where it belongs, in downtown Buffalo.
Yeah.
But they were trying to make it more of a black letter law school. When I went there from 93 to 96, you had older students, more students of color, and I think that's changed. You have a smaller student body, and it's primarily Caucasian, unfortunately.
So that's why. What do you mean by black letter specifically?
They wanted to shed their, because it was Buffalo, or UB was known as the Berkeley of the East, and UB wants to shed itself of that image and become more of a traditional law school, and not train students for public interest work. Like, I see the law as a tool to bring about social, political, and economic change. And UB wants to get away from that type of learning experience.
Well, I don't know how true this is. I heard that UB's Black Student Union has become something else. They kind of watered that down.
It wouldn't shock me one bit.
So
nothing good comes out of UB.
Yeah, and that's a shame.
It shouldn't be called UB until they bring that school back into the city of Buffalo. You never see me. I grudgingly went there for 3 years.
Right. Wow.
The last law school was on 77 West Eagle, but we were at the Ellicott Square building. We were right there near Niagara Square. But traditionally, that school was downtown, and actually UB was the first, or the law school was the first building at that god-awful Amherst campus. Why would you put the law school in the middle of nowhere? We're miles and miles from the courts, so law students may never even see a courthouse. It's crazy. It's bizarre.
Because they're looking for a certain type of student.
Yes, that's right.
That's how that is. These are tricks that have been played for generations.
Correct.
Okay, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
Yes.
We don't have. It's bad enough we don't have as many black students even going to college hardly anymore.
It is it's a real tragedy.
Yeah, it is. So you don't know who knows how bad things will get with the current situation we have in the schools, in the Buffalo public schools.
Because some schools you have 20% graduation rates.
So it's just not good.
Yes,
it's not a good situation. But getting back to what we were talking about weeks ago, your lawsuit, you're suing the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yes, on December 6th, 2013, I'm the plaintiff. I'm the one bringing the lawsuit, and I'm represented by Dare Brian Irwin, who's the former head of the Western New York Civil Liberties Union. Okay. But we're suing for records that the CIA has on a protest that occurred at CIA headquarters in January of 2010. Now, at that time, Cindy Sheehan, whose son was killed during the Iraq War, organized the protest in Langley, Virginia, in front of CIA headquarters. Something like this had never occurred before. Yeah. And I was just amazed at the amount of police. And this was CIA police. I didn't even know they had their own police force. But there were
I'm not surprised. I've been to D.C.
Yes.
Tons of things. They have several. They got dozens of police forces, different police forces. Now, you know, and I've encountered the Secret Service. There's uniformed Secret Service also. Okay,
yes.
And just driving an empty flatbed to D.C. trying to get back to 95, and they pulled me over. They're like, "Are you lost?" I say, "Yeah, I'm trying to get back to 495." They said, "Okay, well, I'm going to clear the traffic thing for you, and you can turn around, you can swing around." And he gave me directions, but they are very guarded. I give it to them. They are on top of stuff. But in terms of police forces and intelligence networks, D.C. is the place. You know, that I'm amazed by that.
Yeah, but there were roughly, Cindy Sheehan was the keynote speaker. You had former FBI agent Jack Ryan, who was fired back in the 1980s because he refused to investigate one or two individuals he knew who were involved in protests or were opposed to U.S. policy in Central America. He was fired by the FBI. Lost his pension and what have you, had his career ruined. Jack Ryan was a speaker, and there were folk singers and such. And then afterwards, we were marching to Dick Cheney's house. And Dick Cheney actually lived, and may still live, within walking distance of CIA headquarters. So during the protest and the various presentations, the CIA police were monitoring the demonstration, and we were all photographed. And this one officer in particular had this mammoth camera, and he made it a point to get very good photographs of every participant in that protest. So what I did, and one quick question, Chris, guess what the name of the CIA headquarters building is? Guess who it's named after? One of our presidents, recent presidents.
Probably the man who's been there the longest, George H.W. Bush.
George Bush. George Bush won. Most people don't know that.
Wow.
So it's the George H.
And we don't know how long he was in there. He had organized so many things.
Yes.
I guess he's behind the scenes, behind on a lot of
things.
A lot of things. If I read things correctly, but that's the only name that could hit me. How old is that building?
That particular building, I'm not sure. I would assume several decades.
Okay.
But you can't really see it from the road where we were positioned. But after the protest, I submitted, when was it? Maybe a year or so later, I submitted a request under the Federal Freedom of Information Act to the CIA requesting any records or photographs that were taken at that protest. The CIA they neither confirmed nor denied whether or not they had records, and they clearly had records. So I filed an administrative appeal. My appeal was denied, and under the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA for short, it gives you a right to sue. You can sue in one of three places: where the records are located, the District of Columbia, or where the requester resides. And in this instance, since I'm the requester, we brought the lawsuit here in Buffalo at the U.S. District Court for the Western District of New York. And we filed the lawsuit, as I said, on December 6th of 2013. Wow. The government's asked they have 30 days to answer. The government moved or filed a motion, which we consented to file an answer the first week of February of 2014. So at that time, there'll be an answer. We'll then file a motion for a Vaughn Index, depending on what their answer is. But a Vaughn Index indicates what the records are and why they're being withheld. The FOIA has various exemptions. There's one for national security. There's one for law enforcement. There's a personal privacy exemption. Now, the exemptions are permissive, not mandatory, disclosure, not secrecy is the dominant feature of FOIA. Okay. But what I'd like to do is get these photographs, get any records that were generated as a result of this protest. And keep in mind, everyone there was exercising rights guaranteed to them by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. There was no violence, nothing of that sort, so people were exercising constitutional rights. And here they're being surveilled by the CIA and Lord knows who else.
Right.
So it's important for us as citizens to expose this criminal activity. There's another statute called the Privacy Act of 1974, and subsection E7 has a provision that states a federal agency is not supposed to keep records on how you exercise rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. So by photographing participants in this demonstration, collecting information on the participants in the demonstration. It's all in violation of subsection E7 of the Privacy Act of 74.
Amazing. Okay, like you said before, you filed all this. This is a December report. So this whole thing's going to take place in February.
The CIA will file an answer in early February of 2014.
All right.
Then we'll probably have a hearing or a meeting with the magistrate judge, and I would suspect the case will be fully briefed by the end of spring, and then the judge will at some point make a decision.
You know something, that's very timely in view, of course, of the NSA stuff.
That's correct.
Okay, and a lot of people don't know the difference between the CIA and the NSA. It was, of course, I just remember back in the early 80s, late 70s, reading that book, The Puzzle Palace.
Yes.
So they said the NSA was 10 times bigger than the CIA and twice as more secretive or something like that.
For years, they claimed NSA stood for no such agency.
Really?
Yes.
That now.
No, that's correct.
But I remember that movie, The Falcon and the Snowman, and the NSA is referenced in there, to some extent. But what is your take on the NSA today?
Well, I think they've gone overboard with the interception of communications and such. I think we've gone back to the 70s with what happened with the Black Panthers and the American Indian movement. And this whole terrorist threat has been overblown. Personally, which we won't go into in this program, I think 9/11 was an inside job. I think George Bush and company knew that was going down. They needed that. That was the new Pearl Harbor to get us into the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I think the NSA has gone way overboard, so has the FBI. And it's just a way to sort of monitor the population. The purpose of the various agencies, whether it's the NSA or the CIA or the FBI, is to monitor and quash domestic political dissent. That's really what's going on here. Most people are just trying to keep body and soul together. How many, I don't know what the exact number is, but the bulk of the population lives on less than $1 a day. Yeah. They're not. They're just trying to survive.
Yep.
They're not thinking up ways to hurt Americans or hurt America. It's all propaganda. Yeah. It's a big scam.
Yeah, you're right. You know something though. What does that say about your certain aspects of government? Are they insecure, or what I'm saying? Because I know they will give you what we fear communism, stuff like this.
Yes.
Okay. Whatever it is they say they're fighting against, never believe it. Okay, whether it's terrorism, drugs, or communism, whatever it is your government tells you they're fighting against, you're going to find out. Usually, it's the same people that's paying the price for it. Number one, so they're not fighting. They're not worried about communism.
Yes.
Okay, they're not worried about drugs, whatever. Matter of fact, they've even aided and abetted drugs.
Yeah, in fact, the CIA is responsible for the crack epidemic.
Exactly.
They started it.
They started
to fund the Contra War.
Yep. That was
in
the starting
Nicaragua.
point.
Yes.
So whatever it is they're talking about, like I said, today is terrorism. Don't buy into any of that. All right, it's a certain segment of people they're fighting against.
And they're making money on it.
And they're making money.
It's just like the these corrections officers, whether it's here in New York or in California, where they have an incredibly powerful union, they're outraged that any governor, whether it's Cuomo or Jerry Brown, would propose closing prisons.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're concerned about the population or public safety. Hey, they'd be out of work if we start shutting down the prisons.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people getting rich on the prison system.
There's whole small towns out there, like you say, Cartersport, not Cartersport, Brockton, I'm trying to think of it, Windy, whatever.
That's in Alden. You got
Alden,
Olean. Not Olean, I mean Orleans, I'm sorry.
Attica. Clinton. These prisons feed that town.
Correct.
Or township. That's it. You shut those down, and here's the funny thing: they don't want to hear about. My thing is turn the prisons into universities.
Yes.
They don't want that.
No,
we're enjoying the prison thing.
Yes.
We don't want. You can keep your job. You can just do something. Do your now campus security.
Yes.
No, we like the prison thing. Why? That's guaranteed money. Okay, and even though it's dirty money. A lot of people in there are innocent. Okay, but that's what they like. So it became part of the dominant part of what, pork barrel or whatever, and the reward, the end to justify the means of a corrupt system.
Yes.
A racist.
Well,
what's
happened, Chris? I'm 54 now. I don't know how old you are.
55.
But the system is criminalized more and more behavior. Yeah. So behavior you and I engaged in as young men is now criminalized.
Right.
So it's that's the big problem. But certain people have a vested interest in criminalizing everything.
Yeah, that's very true.
So it's really unfortunate, and all we could do is try to educate the masses, get them engaged, because that's what the system fears: an educated and engaged citizenry. Very important.
I'll go along with that. And speaking of the CIA, I want to bring out, because I just finished an article dealing with Mandela and the CIA.
Yes.
I didn't know that in previous years, and how he was spied on by the CIA as well as British intelligence.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you would expect him to be spied on by South African intelligence, but my question, well, what does CIA and British intelligence? What do they care? It's about this little country, South Africa.
Yes.
Okay, just way at the bottom of the continent, and you're worried about a little black guy, from a poor family.
Yes.
And he's going to make you spend thousands of dollars to spy on him. All right. So that boggled me. That
doesn't shock me. In fact, an associate of ours, Ryan Shapiro, just brought a lawsuit under FOIA for records regarding the CIA spying on Nelson Mandela, and that case was just filed within the past week.
Wow. So did it come back? Did the information?
No. Mr. Shapiro made the request, so this is still in the very early stages.
That is heavy.
So stay tuned.
That is heavy. And if they spied on him, obviously they spied on others.
Oh, without a doubt.
His immediate, guys in the ANC.
Yes.
Sisulu and other people like that.
Correct.
That is incredible. That is amazing. We're learning more stuff every day.
It's amazing. The criminality of this government. There's nothing that shocks me.
Yeah, you're right. Oh no, a quick question on a local level, because what I want to know, your opinion on the Buffalo Police Department. Do you think under Dorinda that our police are more abusive or less abusive or maybe the same?
Well, my number one, I think Buffalo Police still doesn't require a degree. I think you only have to have 45 or 60 units.
They still don't require.
I think the first thing that should be done is first and foremost, you should live in the city of Buffalo. I think that's got to happen because if you don't live in the community, you don't have a vested interest in seeing that things. Number one, you don't know the community. Yeah. And number two, you're not a stakeholder. So I think first and foremost, we have to have residency for Buffalo police officers. Okay. And then what I'd like to see is at the very least a 2-year degree. but preferably a 4-year degree in sociology or something along those lines.
Right.
And have officers dealing with people of diverse backgrounds, different cultures and such. So I think that would be very helpful.
That would be great. You know, it would get Buffalo, it would get them away from being the historic wedge institution, as I heard, it was one guy called it. You know, just being divisive and everything, and you know, brutal and corrupt to a great extent. And I asked that question because I have not kept up with police brutality in Buffalo over the last several years. So I don't know if you have or anybody else. I just wanted your overview on that one.
I think the complaints I hear deal with sort of disengagement.
Mm-hmm.
Like some officers, I mean, and this is happening at all levels, the pension scam, because with the police at fire are under an entirely different pension system. Mm-hmm. So when they know they're getting near the end of their tenure, their pension is based on their highest year. It's not 3 years, it's 1 year. So you have officers, whether it be at the holding center or patrol officers, when they know they're getting ready to retire, they'll put in that overtime, and then their pension is based on their overtime salary. So you see officers getting overtime of over $100,000, and then their pension is based on that. That's got to change. Where else does that happen? And it happens with elected officials. In fact, a county legislator just got an appointment with the Empire State Development Corporation, and her salary will be in the 70s. And now, because for years, Erie County legislators make roughly $42,000, so she has many years at that lower rate of pay. She'll get her 3 high years, and then her pension will be based on the 70-some-odd thousand as opposed to 42,000.
Wow. Yeah. There's got to be some reform there.
Yes, and I don't see Mr. Cuomo or Governor Cuomo doing any of that. But I expected nothing from him. He was awful at HUD, and he's doing exactly what I expected as governor.
I got you. Let's go into this Ray Robinson, not to be confused with Sugar Ray Robinson.
That's correct.
But an activist that you have covered. Have you defended this person?
No. Ray Robinson, his name's actually Perry Ray Robinson. Okay. He's from Alabama. Yeah. His family is in Detroit, Michigan. Mm-hmm. Now, Ray Robinson is a civil rights activist. He marched with Martin Luther King. Okay. And back in 1973, he attended a conference or a convention for the American Indian movement. Mm-hmm. And at the time, members of the American Indian Movement, or AIM, were urging people and supporters to come to Wounded Knee. And for those old enough to remember it, from February of 1973 through May of 1973, AIM supporters and members occupied the village or town of Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Mm-hmm. So Ray Robinson went out to Wounded Knee to show his solidarity with his Red brothers. Ray Robinson never returned, and he disappeared. His wife had no idea what had happened to him. He had 2 young daughters and the son. Ray's wife, Cheryl, got the royal runaround from the FBI and such. Mm-hmm. And she's been trying, along with her daughters, to find out what happened to Ray. And, they've traveled, her daughter Tamara, or TK, and Desiree have gone to Wounded Knee. They've looked, they ask people questions. Have you seen my husband? Have you seen my father? And they just have been getting the royal runaround. So what I did is I learned about the case. I represented Leonard Peltier, who was a member of the American Indian Movement, and I've read just about every book about the American Indian Movement and Leonard Peltier. And there was a book by the name of Unquiet Grave by Steve Hendricks. And in that book, there was a chapter about Ray Robinson, and I had never heard about Ray or his case. And then Carson Walker, an AP reporter, did a couple of stories about Ray Robinson and his disappearance. So what I did is I made a request under the Freedom of Information Act going back, it was like 2010, 2011 now, requesting records regarding Ray Robinson. First, the FBI said they couldn't find any records. Then they said, well, there's an ongoing investigation. We can't give you the records. They're exempt from disclosure. So on June 26th of 2013, I brought a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act for records relating to Ray Robinson. Mm-hmm. The Buffalo News, Phil Fairbanks did a great front page story. Associated Press picked up on it. And now the FBI admits there is no ongoing investigation, and they've released, just recently, they released a number of pages, some of which were heavily redacted. And the FBI knows or has a pretty good idea of what happened to Ray Robinson. Yeah. We know he was shot and killed by either someone masquerading as a member of the American Indian movement, but he was, and I have the documents right here. But what happened to poor Ray, they had bunkers at Wounded Knee. And for those, if you've ever been, if you think there's poverty on the east side of Buffalo, go to Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Grinding poverty. But Wounded Knee is where the occupation occurred. There's like sort of rolling hills, but at the time there was a church and a trading post, but they had set up bunkers and they were surrounded by the U.S. Marshals and what have you. But Ray was in a bunker with a number of members. And keep in mind, the American Indian movement had been infiltrated by undercover agents and informants and what have you, so Lord knows who was really in that bunker. But it's undisputed that Ray got into some kind of squabble with these 6 or 7 AIM members, and he was shot at close range with a high-powered rifle in one of his legs. He was taken from this bunker to this makeshift medical clinic, and he was put in a closet and allowed to bleed to death. Now, and it's all here in one of the reports. Here's various documents with surprisingly very few redactions. So the family isn't out for vengeance or anything like that. What in November of 2013, I actually got to meet Ray's wife, Cheryl, and Desiree, and I actually met Ray's grandson, who's actually in medical school now. Lovely people. And I told them I would do whatever I could to find Ray's remains so they could bring him back to Detroit. So we're hoping that in fact, we had a hearing yesterday, January 16th, before Magistrate Judge Fascio, and we're trying to get additional documents to find out where Ray's remains may be buried. We're not sure if they're at Wounded Knee. Since I filed this lawsuit, I was contacted by someone in Nebraska who indicated that his remains may be in a place called Kyle, South Dakota, which is about, 20 miles or so from Wounded Knee. So I think this is a very important case. I'd like to see civil rights organizations get involved. Based on what I've read about Ray Robinson, he was involved with something called the People's Farm in Alabama. He was sympathetic to the Black Panther Party. The FBI had Ray Robinson. This is based on documents we've secured under FOIA, but Ray was under very intense FBI surveillance. So here he goes to Wounded Knee, vanishes. He's under all this surveillance, and nobody knows what happened to the guy. Ray was supposed to go on a trip to China, and the FBI was with the Black Panther members of the Black Panther Party, and he was under very intense surveillance. And you mean to tell me the FBI, they had files on this guy? They don't know what happened to him? And my belief is that the shooter was either an FBI operative or undercover agent. And that's why the FBI and the Justice Department haven't prosecuted this case. And you have to remember, back then, the head of AIM Security, Douglas Durham, was a former Marine, former Iowa police officer, and he had infiltrated AIM, became head of security, was being paid back in the early 70s $1,000 a month, and he was an FBI plant. So I think that's why this case has gotten little or no media coverage, because the FBI can't afford to have the truth come out. So I think this may be the year 2014 we get justice for Ray Robinson and his family.
Good. That's very good. That's an amazing story.
It is, and very few people know about it.
Very underexposed.
Yes, and we're going to change that.
Good.
With programs such as this and various media outlets.
You know, that's an incredible story.
Yes.
You know, but here's the thing. What's the chances of you know, since you've talked about Leonard Peltier also, I would like to see Obama, President Obama, grant clemency to Peltier, Abu-Jamal, as well as Jamil Abdullah al-Amin.
How about Jalil Muntaqim, formerly known as Anthony Bottom?
Same thing. You know, all these guys. You know, political prisoners that have been sitting
for decades.
For decades.
Yes.
You know, H. Rat Brown now. You know, he's been there since the late '90s, whatever. But still, that's a long time.
Yes.
You know, use your power. You know, these other presidents have freed all types of scumbags.
Yes, they sure have. Mark Rich.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with freeing political prisoners. But at this time, go for it.
But if you've read anything about President Obama, we all had such great hope for him.
Yes.
But if you look at his record regarding pardons or commutations, like Leonard Peltier, he's facing 2 consecutive life sentences plus 7 years.
Yeah.
So what you want is the commutation of sentence. The pardon is sort of you wipe the slate clean.
Right.
So,
well, whatever it takes. I know there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, so commutation is what we want for Mumia or Leonard Peltier or any of the other political prisoners. But unfortunately, President Obama has granted fewer pardons, fewer commutations than any other president. In fact, an article I read late last year indicated that he had pardoned or commuted the sentences of more turkeys than he had individuals.
Now, what is this a restriction that's given to him, or
no? He has unlimited power under the Constitution.
Right,
He does, like the Justice Department. They have the pardon attorney and such. But if you read the Constitution, I believe it's Article 2 and was it Section 2? He could just, and presidents in the past. I mean, if you read the history of pardons and commutations, they used to deal with it directly, but you could still bypass the pardon attorney, and he could today start issuing commutations and pardons, and unfortunately he hasn't exercised that power. We still have what, a couple of more years, right? Maybe.
Don't hold your breath.
Yes.
That's, but I think he pardoned several people a couple of weeks ago. I guess.
They usually do the Christmas time pardons and commutations. But it's still the numbers. It's less than Reagan or Bush 1 or 2.
Right. So, that's what gets me about him. He seems to be, when it comes to matters that resemble race issues.
Yes.
He's he's like very squeamish.
Yes, I don't know why. I guess he's thinking about that presidential library. Doesn't want to turn off those donors, potential donors.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. When it comes to doing for the gay people.
Yes.
He's about to elect, I guess, a gay black female to one of the circuit courts, one of the courts of appeals, whatever. He's done great things for them. But I think that's his safety valve. This is going to be my civil rights safety valve.
Well, what I also would have liked to have seen him done is rebuild American cities.
Yeah.
If you notice any changes here on Jefferson Avenue or Broadway Fillmore, my old stomping grounds.
No.
That's another big disappointment.
Yeah.
The money we've expended on the wars and intelligence gathering could have been used to maybe have a new WPA.
He's done some highways. I've seen his highways.
I don't see too many highways in the hood getting repaved.
That's the problem.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes.
The highways are going to get repaved anyway.
Yes.
Governors or whatever, senators or whatever are going to do
Look at Buffalo. We have the oldest housing stock in the country. We should have a massive rebuilding of our housing stock.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. Food for thought. Unfortunately, it may just stay it may stay just like that, But it has been a pleasure having you on here.
Anytime, Chris. I'm so happy you had me on as a guest.
Oh yeah. It has been an honor.
Yes.
Like I said, and it's been too long since we talked. But we will definitely. I definitely.
If you want to revisit Ray, if you want to revisit Ray Robinson, I may have his family here. They may come once the weather breaks. So
great.
But I give you a heads up.
Yeah, let me know.
Is Facebook the best way to reach you?
Yes. And I'll give you my email address also if you're.
Yeah, let me jot down the.
And that's for you people as well. My email address is pointblankdta@yahoo.com. DTAs and Dave, Time, and Anthony, or don't trust anyone. That's what I say. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, pointblank009, and the same thing on Facebook. I'll go by the same address. But I just want to thanks to Michael Kuzma, the attorney, human rights activist, author. How many books have you written?
I haven't written any books. I've filed a number of briefs. I've argued cases. I've written some articles.
You've written tons of articles. Okay.
I've been mentioned in a number of articles, been on different radio programs.
Yeah. Okay. But, very accomplished. Thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. My name is Chris Stevenson. You all have a safe week.